That's what happened on Glendora versus Russell Brown the week of April the 25th. And in the Glendora versus the Fund for Modern Courts, Michelle Mayapath, Elizabeth Hubbard, and Alan Beck, they did not respond to the recovery, so I have to make a motion to Judge Colabella for an order to compel these defendants to answer the discovery. We had a demand for a bill of particulars. We had a demand for to produce who the witnesses were going to be. We had a demand for an oral deposition, and they did not show up here for that, an oral examination. And then we had a combined demand, and they ignored everything. I just can't understand how an organization called the Fund for Modern Courts, whose sole purpose is court reform, can ignore the court process. So as I say, I will have to make a motion to Judge Colabella to compel them to answer the discovery. He says, I love my work here. He says, I love it so much I do it for nothing, and when I get my paycheck, I think that I am. Before you have an argument with a boss, it's best to see both sides, his side and the outside. If I get here on time, boss, it'll be such a long day. Boss isn't as well off as you think that the telephone in his Lincoln is a party line. And John says that the judge is temperamental, 50% temper and 50% mental. He says that the boss has taken the company from obscurity to anonymity. He said to Marilyn, did the boss give you a piece of his mind? And Marilyn says, yes. And that's amazing when you consider how low the inventory is. Folks, on Lawsuit 1, Glendora versus Cablevision, Dolan, Randolph, Tarter, Bell, Lustgarten, Kofalt, Asnara, Garger, Quinn, James Dolan, Polinsky, Forma, and some others. Last week I was telling you about the brief. This is the appellant's brief that got off to the United States Court of Appeals on the 29th. It was served on Kalaji by 2-day, 2-pound priority mail. And I was telling you that all of the points are by the Greek alphabet, alpha, beta, gamma. Delta, epsilon, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, epsilon, and phi, or phi. They have 2 letters. The Greek alphabet has 2 letters less than we do. And so there it is. And guess what? It cost $135 to print this. The United States Court of Appeals wants 10 copies. Then you had to get a copy to the defendants. So that's a lot of money. So that's already cost about, let's say, $110 for the notice of appeal, or is it $105? $110 to file it. So that's $200. It's about cost $400 so far. I want to read you this over and over again. The Executive Law, Article 28. The cable television franchisee, that's Cablevision in this case, shall not exercise any editorial control over any public, educational, or government use of channel capacity designated for PEG purposes. PEG always, again, stands for public access, educational access, and governmental access. This log that you see here is last week's log. I want you to know that we worked at Cablevision last week for 64 hours. And this is a grid of the jobs that have to be done every day. And this log was sent to Charles Former, Cablevision's counsel, and to Irvin Polinsky. And that was shipped out at 2:30 in the morning, the day that we left White Plains to go to Washington, D.C. for the Gannett annual meeting. In this log is Glendora's protest of, Glendora's complaint about Robert Kalaji. to several judges, administrative judges, to Judge Judith Kay, and to others. I started a new form of keeping a log, keeping one log for all of them. Scott through Cablevision, but I don't know if that's such a good idea. Rather than having one log for each one, I was trying to get rid of the reputation. Excuse me, the repetition. I think I meant repetition, not reputation. They don't have much reputation left that is good. And what took most of the time, I'm going to just read you the points in that paper pretty soon, as soon as I finish the log, was the lawsuit 3, Glendora cross motion to deny Cablevision's dumb motion to dismiss Glendora's complaint, and lawsuit 3, also Glendora's motion for sanctions of Cablevision and their lawyer, Robert Kalaji. To the week of May the 2nd, that's the log of everybody for May the 2nd. I don't know, as I say, this is such a good idea. 150 telephone calls to make up for the time that Cablevision had stolen from us. On Monday we had to do 200 telephone calls. On Monday we also talked to William Finneran, who is the commissioner of the New York State Cable TV Commission, and Cablevision, through their lawyer, Robert Kalaji, is saying that Mr. Finneran and all of his people have no right to exist, that they are unconstitutional, and furthermore they're preempted by federal law. Well, Mr. Finneran was really upset to hear that, and we'll just wait and see what Mr. Finneran's going to do. On Tuesday, the 3rd, is the morning. Well, we only did 160 telephone calls on Monday, May the 2nd. May 3rd is when we went in the middle of the night and down to Washington, D.C. to the Gannett annual meeting, and came back as soon as it was over, around 12:30 p.m. And Wednesday, there wasn't any time, I guess, to work on Cablevision. Did all of the driving. You drove down, you drove back. That's tremendous stamina. And I sat in the back seat and I did all these papers. Has gone 192,000 miles. The Lincoln is 14 years old. From Washington, D.C., from the Gannett annual meeting, we came back through the Lincoln Tunnel, because after all, he's a Lincoln. And we went to Manhattan Cable TV, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and we handed in 4 programs for this coming month, 1 a week, and picked up 4. You got to give the Manhattan Neighborhood Network tremendous credit. They do one great job. They never miss. They do their cable casting just right, and they never lose tapes, and they're very, very organized. And they have computerized labels so that you can label the outside of your tape and the inside of your tape. They're really good, the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. There would be Alex Quinn and Donna Woody and Sully, whom I used to know at Paragon Manhattan Cable TV, way up at 219th Street. Tells about how every morning at 5 a.m. after I get dressed, I go out in the kitchen, I feed the cats, and I make peanut butter sandwiches for the squirrels. 2 peanut butter sandwiches for the squirrels, and cut them up into 12 pieces. And the squirrels, every morning, they sit and they wait for the peanut butter sandwiches. And in addition to that, I give them a little pile of peanuts, shelled peanuts, and put those on the rock wall. And the squirrels sit on their haunches. It's so cute, you know. They hold a peanut like this in their hands and eat it, and they go after another peanut. And then Ginny and Katie go out and bother the squirrels, and the squirrels have to go up the tree and eat. Also, I feed the raccoon. I have to feed the raccoon at night. So I pack a lunch for Frank. He's a good boy. For the bowling alley, and this is the billboard ad that she wrote. I get your kids off the streets and get them in the alley. It's a bowling over golf. Is that in bowling you never lose the ball. Last man to box Joe Louis, The Undertaker. This is pretty bad. Cablevision continues to cover up. Not only do they break the law, then they continue to lie and cover up. And he has a wrong name on here. He doesn't use the name Glendora. The name Glendora Buell does not appear as a caption, in the caption. And Kalaji writes, please be advised that pursuant to CPLR section 3214B, discovery in this proceeding is stayed during the pendency of defendant's motion. Accordingly, we will not appear for the depositions notice for May the 4th, 1994. That was yesterday. Well, we're not going to let them get away with that. We will write a motion to Judge Silverman to compel the defendants to answer the discovery, to answer the bill of particulars, to answer the demand for to produce what witnesses they're going to produce, to have an oral examination, an oral deposition, and to answer the combined demand. Lawsuit 1, the ball is in the court of Cablevision, the lawbreakers, and right now, Kalaji will be the month of May, writing his respondent's brief, or what they call the appellee's brief. And then in June, there will be an oral argument as early as the week of June 27th. That's lawsuit 1. That was before Judge Bryant for violation of 42 United States Code, Section 1983. Now lawsuit 2, everything is before Judge Silverman. There's the complaint before him, where Cablevision broke the state law, Article 28, the executive law, 829.3. And there's a motion before Judge Silverman for a permanent restraining order, and there's a motion before Judge Silverman to vacate such a the temporary restraining order, and also, of course, my opposition to any permanent restraining order, on the basis that it was unconstitutional that he signed the temporary restraining order, and also on the basis that and that I have a right to be heard and all that, and there's my opposition to the order to show cause why there should not be a permanent restraining order. And then before him, and he's going to have a preliminary conference on June the 1st. Now, this is lawsuit 3. The amount of that Cablevision was sued in lawsuit 1 was $31 million, in lawsuit 2 was $181 million, and in lawsuit 3, $292 million. Now, lawsuit 3 is before Judge Broderick. It's in the United States District Court here in White Plains. And I'm going to read you what happened on that. First of all, there was a lawsuit. Here's the lawsuit. You know the contents of that. You've heard all of that. And this is the defendant's answer, which is just one lie, one assumption, wild assumption after the other. Big accomplishment there is that I used up all the backs of that. And then, that's the motion. That's the motion to dismiss. It's more than a motion to dismiss. It's a very foolish attempt to enjoin Glendora from any further lawsuits. It's a foolish attempt to get a summary judgment when they broke the law and they admit that they did wrong. And okay, to dismiss and to enjoin plaintiff. Okay, now I will read you the big points on my cross motion to deny their motion to dismiss my complaint. United States District Court, Southern District of New York, Glendora plaintiff against Charles F. Dolan, John Tata, William J. Bell, William J. Quinn, Mark A. Lusgarten, Francis P. Randolph Jr., James A. Kofalt, Joseph Aznara, James L. Dolan, Charles Former, Robert S. Lemley, Irvin B. Polinsky, Thomas Garger, and Cablevision Systems Corporation defendants. It's a 1994 case, civil, 2199, before Vincent L. Broderick. Notice of cross motion to deny Dolan defendants Motion to dismiss plaintiff's complaint for defendant's failure to state a defense. They never really stated a defense. And for what defendants have stated is without merit. And for failure to deal with the gravamen of the action violation of Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 531E. And notice of motion for default judgment and or summary judgment, motion to deny defendant's motion to enjoin plaintiff, motion to deny defendant's motion to abstain from this action and or to stay this action, motion to sanction Robert M. Kalaji, Esquire, motion to sanction the Dolan defendants, motion to strike the entire Kalaji affirmation from the record, motion to award plaintiff Glendora $292 million for damages, motion to return Glendora's programs to Channel 35 at 10 p.m. every Friday, motion to make good all the programs missed in another time slot in prime time, 8 to 11 p.m., motion that all costs and disbursements be taxed against defendants, and motion that this court award plaintiff whatever further relief is just and proper. And I make this motion to be heard. I swore to this motion on April the 30th, which was last week, and I motioned it to be heard on May the 6th, 1994, which is tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. I wonder if I should be there. I think I'll go there just to be sure. See, most judges just hear things on paper and they don't have oral arguments, but I'd better go there just in case. Alrighty, and I asked them to get answering papers back to me prior to the 2 days prior to the return date, and they didn't do that. Okay, here's my affidavit in support of my cross motion and my motions. Well, point alpha. Defendants, Dolan defendants, do not address the gravamen. They broke a federal law. Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 531E. Subject to Section 544D of this title, a cable operator shall not exercise any editorial control over any public, educational, or governmental use of channel capacity provided pursuant to this section. Nowhere did defendants state a defense of their having broken Title 47 of the United States Code, the law I just read you. Point beta. Nor does plaintiff Glendora believe defendants ever will have a defense. They broke the law, and that is all there is to it. Point gamma. Nowhere do Dolan defendants deny they broke Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 531E, in the instant case before you. Nor did the co-fault defendants in lawsuit 2 in the state court deny what Glendora reported in her background and in her what defendants didn't break the law, when they broke it, where they broke it, how they broke it. Nor did the Cable Vision System Corporation defendants in lawsuit 1 before Judge Bryant deny the same background and what defendants did to break the law. Judge Bryant said the court is not questioning facts which you've been putting forward. The court is accepting as true your factual statements. That's page 8 of minutes that I bought for $30. Point delta. So as a matter of law, plaintiff Glendora should be granted summary judgment, and as a matter of fact, Glendora should be granted summary judgment. The facts are not in dispute. The law is not in dispute. So as a matter of law and as a matter of fact, Glendora should be granted summary judgment. Point epsilon. Dolan defendants defaulted on their answer. Glendora's summons with notice stated within 20 days. There's the summons, and it says clearly within 20 days. And not counting the day of service when the summons was served and complaint, that was on the 29th of March. And here is the affidavit of service. Very nice affidavit of service. Where Franklin went something like 150 miles in 11 hours to serve these people. Here's the calendar showing that the answer should have been in April 18th, and the answer was not in until April 19th, or 20th, really. And here is postmark. See it? April 19th. It wasn't even served until a day later. So Glendora should win by default judgment. Now, where were we? Okay. Plaintiff cannot be enjoined for specious and silly reasons stated by the Dolan defendant's lawyer. My wherefore in that lawsuit is $292 million. Defendants immediately return the program to being cablecast where it was, make good the programs they missed, the costs be taxed against the defendants, and what other further relief the court deems just and proper. And I quote Amendment 1 here to the United States Constitution, that Glendora has a constitutional right to petition her government for redress of grievances, so how can she be enjoined? Let me just read you that part of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Point theta, these two actions, one in state court and one in federal court, are not identical, not nearly identical, not almost identical. The Dolan defendants failed to deal with Glendora's causes of action, 2nd through 9th. Plaintiff Glendora is unopposed on these matters. Defendants offer no defense. Point iota, there is no reason of collateral estoppel, no res judicata in this matter before the court. Lawsuit 1 was before Judge Bryan, and it was a different law that they had broken. That would be Title 42, United States Code, Section 1983. Lawsuit 3 before Judge Broderick is a violation of another federal law, Title 47, United States Code, Section 531E. Point kappa. 3 obfuscations. In the first lawsuit, Cablevision lawyer Kalaji tried to smokescreen with whimpering about the service until finally Judge Bryant really made a fool out of Kalaji. Well, he made a fool out of himself. He didn't need any help. And that was lawsuit 1 obfuscation. Lawsuit 2 obfuscation was the order to show cause for the gag order. Okay, now lawsuit 3 obfuscation is to abstain, that the judge should abstain from ruling, that the judge should stay his decision until the action in the state court is over. And then the third one is that Glendora should be enjoined from bringing any more lawsuits against Cablevision. Well, the way Cablevision can stop the lawsuits, you know, folks, is to stop breaking the law. That would stop the lawsuits. In all 3 lawsuits against the law breaking by the Cablevision tortfeasors, Kalaji tries to win on listing Glendora's other fights for rights. It's the dumbest thing. His whole affirmation is all about all the lawsuits. Scott Lord, Broder, Gannett. How does that excuse Cablevision from violating a federal law? The DHCR case, the Lydia case, the Wall case, the Brower case, I think he missed Brower, and the modern courts. Point new. In his greed, Kalaji does not care how bad he looks, because for every paper he writes, folks, he gets an enormous amount of money. And if I put in 64 hours on Cablevision last week, and Kalaji put in 64,000, he probably billed his client for 19,000. I mean, if I put in 64 hours and if he put in 64 hours, he billed him for 19,000. Glendora refutes every paragraph of Kalaji's affirmation. And I typed that in the margin. I'll show you that later. Now here's James. The question is, why did James Kofalt leave the company? James Kofalt was a big gun. He was next to the chairman and the CEO, Charles Dolan, and the founder. And he was the president. I remember when he was head of the cable TV systems, and then he was promoted to president, and his name is on the stock certificate. And so I give to the court the list of these people and what their jobs are. William J. Bell is vice chairman, Les Garton is a vice chairman, Randolph is a vice chairman, Lemley is a senior vice president, general counsel. James L. Dolan is the chief executive officer of what? Program operations. Charles D. Fair, no, not him. Let's see. Tada, of course, is a partner. He was a partner with Charles Dolan, and he's in an advisory capacity. Well, he certainly gave him good advice to take a program off the air. Now here's the mugshot of them all. Someday I'll show you a better picture of that so you can see him. And the man down in the corner here is William Quinn, and this is James L. Dolan. And they're having a problem with the Internal Revenue Service, and I tell the judge about that, and I tell the judge about many other litigation problems that they're having. They spent $5 million in litigation in 1993. Point Psi. Glendora points out to the court she has not violated the state court temporary restraining order, unconstitutional as it is, and as inadvisable as it was, according to the administrative judge's office. Kalaji will not come to the phone to get the information. Nobody in his office will take messages, so his bluff has been called. Point Omicron. Glendora made a motion to Judge Bryan to vacate his decision of February 18th and gave as one reason this law that Cablevision broke, Federal Law 47, U.S. Code 531E. And Judge Bryan ignored that completely, and so when he completely ignored it, there was nothing to do but to bring a third lawsuit against Cablevision, and that was in the United States District Court. And that's the one that we're discussing now. By the annual report, Cablevision spent $5 million in lawsuits and litigation. Point Row, the lead defendant is Charles F. Dolan. Glendora will not let Kalaji get away with calling the case before you, Cablevision. As the Second Circuit United States Court of Appeals says, you have to have a proper abbreviation, and Kalaji is trying to pull a fast one. The right abbreviation is the Dolan defendants. Cablevision was the first lawsuit. The second lawsuit, the lead defendant was Coldfault, and the third lawsuit, the lead defendant is Dolan. Point Sigma. Dolan defendants are un-American and totalitarian. They never heard of human rights. They never laid down their lives for their country as Richard Young did. They and Kalaji should go back to 9th grade physics and learn freedom of speech or press, or petition to redress one's government for grievances and of due process. Point Tau. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Up to 10 times Kalaji repeats the same statement. He gets paid by the paragraph. Through this phony, tiresome repetition, he makes more money than a judge. That's no lie, folks. It is not fair. It is Kalaji who should be gagged, restrained, enjoined, and stayed. It is not mature. It is all baby stuff. It is desperate. Dolan defendants broke the law, Title 47, United States Code 531E. The rest is just to line Kalaji's Park Avenue pockets and pay for his rye house. How much did he charge the shareholders for looking up Glendora's other fights for rights? That took considerable research. His affirmation is as long as his memorandum almost. That is the way it is when you don't have a defense. It still, I think, is an appealable paper, and so does the pro se clerk in Foley Square. Great decision. Endorsement. Glendora versus Conrad Duberstein et al. Motion denied. So ordered. White Plains, New York, April 4th, 1994. It's a sloppy piece of work, and this is Judge Cattell. This is my affidavit of service, or Franklin's affidavit of service, and they slap this on the top of it, over the top of it, and this is what they send out as a decision and an order for an endorsement. So, And nobody in the district court in White Plains can tell you if this is an appealable paper. But downtown they said it was. So I read you that. Notice is hereby given that Plaintiff Glendora hereby appeals to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit from the order of Gerard L. Gattel, United States District Judge, in the court denying plaintiff's motion to vacate and reconsider the memorandum decision of March 4th, 1994, entered on April 15th, 1994. So, May the 15th is a Sunday, so I have to file my notice of appeal on Friday, 13th. What's that all about? Well, back last summer of '93, Judge Gattel dismissed my case against these people on the basis that I hadn't filed my administrative claims. Now that's a dismissal without prejudice. That means I can go and file the claims and come back. So I went and I filed these federal claims, and I waited 2-3 months and kept on the phone on them every week to get their work done down in Washington, D.C., and all these agencies, the Court Administration Agency and the U.S. Trustees and the U.S. Marshals and the United States Attorney's Office. I waited for all that to happen, and they came back to denials. I guess that wasn't too hard to predict, right? They're all going to stick together. They're not going to say anything bad about their buddies. And so I came back to Judge Gattel with the denials, and I said, now let's get down to the issue of the case, which is negligences, all of the negligences that these people committed. Let's you know, just for a change, just for the fun of it, let's get down to the issue of this case. And and so I made this motion to vacate his decision of August 1993. And he denied that. He denied that motion. And the paper that he wrote was all mixed up. It was really incomprehensible. And so I came back with another motion asking him to vacate his decision of, let's see, that would be the decision of March the 22nd, I believe. And this is what he wrote for that. So enough of this. Isn't it hard? You pay all this money, you spend all this time, and you never can find justice. We will soon be going to the funeral of Madam Justice. Slowly but surely, she is being strangled. To Janet All's house, News 12, Long Island, 1 Meteor Crossways, Woodbury, New York. Glendora has a preponderance of evidence that James E. Picken and his crew, Nassau County Department of Consumer Affairs, are willfully and knowingly allowing home improvement contractor Scott Lord to operate a lawn sprinkling business in Nassau County with no home improvement license in violation of Local Law 6. The enclosed correspondence is the most recent go-around at this dereliction of duty. There is much, much more. This calls for an investigative report on your part. Here's today's joke. Joe, a mind is a wonderful thing. Mother-in-law, yes, everybody should have one. Yours in truth, Glendora. Same letter went out to Howard Schneider, who is a managing editor of Newsday in Long Island. Lord, file on the TV report what happened on May the 6th, 1994, Friday. It's a big problem. Who will do the editing of A Chat with Glendora next Thursday? Well, Glendora is at the final meeting of creditors in Brooklyn. I guess the thing to do is to go down there at 8:45 a.m. and see Jackie and Diane and see the appellate term and see the appellate division and watch bankruptcy judges and watch the appellate division judges and see the clerks and go to the hearing at 2 p.m. We hope that I can leave at 2:30 p.m. to get back to Westchester with good luck at 3:30 p.m. maybe, and make the editing at 4 p.m. Franklin will go down there and cover, and Rob Osinoff will show Franklin how to do the editing. I have to be sure that everything is videotaped, but I haven't done that yet because of having to go to the CBS annual meeting and having to go to Ossining to hand in the tapes and having to go to Yonkers to hand in the tapes and having to go to White Plains to edit on Monday. I
I cleaned up all of the files. I took one file, Scott Lord file, downstairs to the archives. That would be the Fredman Research that should have won the case. With a good judge, that case would have been won. I have to keep it up. The files are in good shape. The gathering of papers to appeal Gattell. It's bad work, and Franklin is having copies made of the Picken letter. And Scott Lord last week was 10 hours, and that's the end of May the 2nd, 1994 week, and the log was entered on May the 8th, 1994 Sunday. On May the 9th, 1994 Monday, the Lincoln went to the hospital for plastic surgery. There's a hole in the passenger door, of the driver's door, front door. And if you ever see the door on a Lincoln, it's a work of art in itself. There must be about 20 controls in there, all over the car. So a door is a very important thing on a Lincoln. It takes care of the seat goes in 6 positions. Now this is an old Lincoln, a 1980 Lincoln. It was the first year of the 4-door luxury Mark. That's the first year that they made a 4-door Mark. The Lincoln Continental Mark 6, 1980, 351 engine. So there's things there that control the mirror, and there's things there that put the seat into 6 positions, and there's things there that unlock all of the doors, and there's things there that put down all of the windows, and that lock the windows so that nobody can put them down. And there's a whole pile of stuff in a Lincoln door. I videotaped Scott on Monday, and I videotaped Broder, and I edited at White Plains on both of these, programs number 1482 and 1483, and Scott was all about Picken, McDonald, and Galata. On May the 10th, 1994, Tuesday, there were 130 telephone calls. I protested the Broderick Cablevision lawsuit 3. Another bad decision. It's a good thing that a public record is being made of this. I sent Picken, Galata, Scott, McDonald to Newsdays and to News 12, and the angle of the story is cover-up, and also dereliction of duty and breaking the law. Certainly, the Nassau County Office of Consumer Affairs is there to protect consumers, and I have shown clearly that they are not doing that. And I got the Gattell notice of appeal ready to type on Tuesday, and the Fredman brief and record go out on Friday the 13th. Isn't that nice? And the files are in good shape. And there's 1 hour on Scott Monday and an hour and a third hours on today. And I made a motion to the appellate term for Lydia Gallicano, to ask the appellate term to compel Lydia Gallicano to pay that debt, that judgment debt of $1,580 plus interest. And also we got out an information subpoena compelling Lydia Gallicano to give us the facts as to where the money is and where we can collect it. The time is 4:30 p.m. and I made a grid. Now what happened on Wednesday? Wednesday morning, the first thing that I did was to hand in the notice of appeal for the Broderick decision that Gannett is not a monopoly. And then I went down to Manhattan to the annual meeting of CBS. And that was very, very interesting. There were about maybe almost 200 people there. It was held in the Theater of the Modern Arts Museum. Lawrence Tisch was in good shape. He's much better at an annual meeting than John Curley, the CEO of Gannett. John Curley, the CEO of Gannett, doesn't answer any questions. But Tisch really answers questions. He answers yes or no. And Evelyn Y. Davis was there, and she gave the usual good points. She makes good points. The shareholders, or at least a vocal portion of the shareholders, seem to be against her. But I think she makes good points. And the man from Accuracy in Media was there, and another man from Accuracy in Media. And they wanted cameras at the CBS meeting. And Lawrence Tish says, this is a business meeting. It shouldn't be on CNN and so forth and this and that. And then at that point I rose and I said that I had attended the hearings of the Office of Court Administration of New York State as to cameras in the courtroom, and that CBS had somebody there, their litigation counsel, a woman whose last name began with S. Can you remember what it was? I told you at the time. And CBS wanted cameras in the courtroom, barred, all holes barred. As many cameras as they wanted, at any time that they wanted, even to the extent of covering up the blue dot that protects the witness, so that people can't tell the witness who the witness is, so that witness cannot be retaliated against. And I said, I do think it's hypocritical that CBS should want cameras to cover somebody else, but they don't want cameras to cover themselves. And Mr. Tish said, thank you. Henry Kissinger wasn't there. Now, he should have been there. If he's going to be a director of CBS, he certainly has to make the annual meeting. Robert Preston Tish was there. That's Mr. Tish's brother. And Mr. Robert Tish, who lives in Harrison. Mr. Tish, by the way, lives in Rye. He has a place in Manhattan, but he lives in Rye. Robert Tish, Preston Tish, owns the New York Giants. A very relevant question was asked by David Brown. What's CBS going to do on Sunday afternoon since they don't have the NFL anymore? Fox says it. What are they going to do? Well, Mr. Springer, Howard Stringer, said that they were considering some other football, and they were considering some dramas, movies, and things like that. The answer on that was vague. There was a lot of talk about Sagansky leaving, and Sagansky is the one who gets the credit, and also Howard Stringer, for putting CBS in first place. And Mr. Sagansky made something like $7 or $8 million last year in bonuses for doing that. And so I think that CBS is sort of worried as to who is going to replace Mr. Sagansky. Mr. Tish says that Mr. Sagansky doesn't want to live here. He wants to live out in Hollywood. But that certainly... And Stringer says that Sagansky has conquered this world. He's put CBS in the #1 position. You know, where is there to go after that? He's an entrepreneurial person. Where is there to go after that? The meeting was over. It started at 11. It was over at 1:05 p.m. That would be 2 hours. And then I went to CBS on 57th Street, and I asked to see the public file. The FCC, Federal Communications Commission, requires that a TV station keep a public file. And that's the file. I wanted to see the complaints, and I wanted to see the lawsuits, and I wanted to see their renewal, their application for license renewal. Their license is up on July 1st. I am opposed to CBS getting the Channel 2 license because of the way they operate, as evidence in my lawsuit against CBS, against Stringer. And I didn't sue Mr. Tish, but I sued Stringer and Bresson and Peter Lund and Aberzies and Margot and Steinfeld and Daly. They just cannot, they just have to learn that they're not going to get away with that. That's on appeal, as you know, appellate division. It'll be a year and a half before we hear anything from that and have an oral argument. On the way down, I stopped at Yonkers Cablevision, and I picked up 4 tapes, and I left 4 tapes. I like Betty down there very much. They had the tapes all up there in the front desk. It was just a 2-3 minute job. And then I had to come back and get notarized my motion to compel Lydia Gallicano to the appellate term to pay a judgment. She's a debtor, and she has to pay that. And then I went through all of the county courthouse to floor 8, and all the courtrooms were locked. and 4:12 all the courtrooms were locked. But at 4:14 a new judge was there, Angelillo, and guess what? He was a law clerk. I never thought anything law clerks ever went anywhere, but this law clerk became a judge. He's good looking. And I saw several court officers that I knew, and I saw several clerks that I knew. And I've known for quite a while, since I started monitoring courts there. When was that? 1991? Maybe earlier. Maybe 1990. Then I got up to the 16th floor and all the courtrooms were closed. It was about 5:20. And I got up to the 18th floor and all the courtrooms were closed. And I found two clerks and I asked them, where's Judge Cowie's courtroom? And they won't say. Not where is his courtroom. They'll tell you where the courtroom is, but they won't tell you where the chambers are. And so I said, well, give me his telephone number. And I went and I called him up. He's always so pleasant. It's always nice to talk to Judge Cowie. He was on a chat with Glendora back in 1987, I believe. It was about 3 weeks before Judge Durango was murdered. Or would that be 88? And so I went down to see him. And he was out there in the corridor waiting for me to let me in. And I told him about how they won't tell you what floor chambers are on. He says, well, it's a good thing. He says, you can look around there as he sat in his office at his desk. He says, you can look around and at the door you can see a total stranger. And I said, I worry about you. At the same time every night, you leave the courthouse and you walk, I won't say where, and that's a pattern, and anybody can know that you're going to do that. And you're out there in the public and you handle all these criminal cases and have for years. I says, I really worry about you. And he says, well, that's something to consider. Out of his window, you can see the progress on the new federal courthouse. And he's surprised that the entrance is going to be on Quaropus. It's going to be a beautiful courthouse. It's going to look like the United States Capitol. And it's going to have a rotunda in the front. It's going to have a dome, and it's really going to be quite elaborate. That's on Lexington and Quaropus, which is a street that runs parallel to Martin in White Plains. Quaropus meaning White Plains. That was the Indian name for White Plains. As they stood and saw the mist rise in the early morning, they said White Plains. To them, in their language, was Quaropus. Okay, and then I had to go up to Yorktown and hand in 2 tapes and pick up 2 tapes. I've got to ask Yorktown if they won't cable cast on VHS. They do some VHS cable casting because they don't have the room to store 4 VHS, 4 3/4-inch tapes. So, but they might have room to store 4 VHS tapes if they can remember to have the programs queued up correctly. And then I didn't get home until 8:30, which is the time I left. I left at 8:30 in the morning, got home at 8:30 in the evening, and parked the car and unloaded the car and went to bed. And got up at 5. The thing that's happening on Glendora versus Scott Lord, Duberstein Hall, and all those other people. And today I have to leave here at 8:30 and go to Brooklyn all day and hope to get home in time in the late afternoon to do the editing. Hope that you're getting the picture that the courts are in very bad shape. And justice just doesn't seem to be around. And these are only civil cases, Just think what it is for a poor person in a criminal case. And all of these things happening. Here's a copy. This is Glendora versus Gannett Broder. And there's a copy of the Ganneteer. And here's about the book. And Gannett wants me to pay $15 for that book, and Gannett refuses to give the library a copy. This is Gannett, a monopoly in Westchester County. And they refuse to give the library a copy of A History of Gannett. They want the library to pay $15 for it. In the meantime, John Curley makes $8 million a year And even if John Curley gets fired, he's going to go on making $8 million a year. So on Thursday, May the 5th, 5A to letters was finished for 8 days, and we typed half of the points for the Coppola brief, and we'll do another half today. It's due the 3rd week of May to be submitted to the Appellate Division. Videotape the updates and edit them, and 8 p.m. to sleep. May the 6th, 1994, Friday, the decision by Broderick came today. The telephoning was done, 120 calls. Scott is done, 5A to letters and 3A blocks. And Broder, 3 hours. Broder was 3 hours. 7 files. The New York State Court of Appeals protests the Broderick decision, antitrust. And Franklin didn't get home from the errands until 7 o'clock. We had a big fight with the sheriff about going to Lydia's Gallicano's house to collect the money. Some of the sheriffs, some of the, I call them deputy sheriffs, but they call them Westchester County police officers, said that, no, we never go to people's houses. And then the other one says, oh yes, we'll go to people. And they were terrible. So they were just infuriating. So I don't know whether I should play you that telephone conversation or not. But I complained to Mr. Ryan. Of course, nobody's in. They're out on the golf course. And I complained to Mr. Ryan's office, but he wasn't in. And then I complained to the commissioner's office, the sheriff, commissioner of public safety. And he wasn't in. John is a born executive. Yes, his father owns a company. On May the 8th, 1994, Sunday, there was no time for Broder. So I started at the first thing Sunday morning at 6 a.m. and I wrote out in longhand, and F typed and Franklin typed Glendora's TV report protesting Judge Broderick, and I've already read that to you. That's his bad decision. That Gannett is not a monopoly. Gannett is not antitrust. The only other thing that's going on in Broderick, on Broder, is the New York State Court of Appeals. I'm asking for leave to appeal the decision of the Appellate Division on Gannett's libel and malice. The total assets of Gannett are $3.82 billion. And Terry said about his company, we'd make a change in management today, but we can't figure out who is running the place now. And that ends the week of May the 2nd, 1994. There were 47 and a half hours on Broder. We spent 47 and a half hours on Broder the week of May the 2nd. He has what it takes to be a successful businessman, rich parents. Now, as I told you, we filed the appeal on Wednesday, May the 11th, for Mr. Big Business decision, Judge Broderick, that Gannett is not a monopoly. Glendora versus the DHCR, that's the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal. We're doing great guns on the brief, the appellant's brief. That has to be in around about the 2nd or 3rd week of May. And we have 12 points of the argument, all written and all typed. And there's about 18 more to go. So another 3 days to finish that, and it'll be done ahead of time. That's the bad decision that Judge Coppola made. Second one. First one was bad enough on the DHCR. This is the second one. Subpoena for the examination of the judgment debtor has to go certified mail to Lydia Gallicano, Lawrence Gallicano, and John Ornberger, their son-in-law lawyer. And that went out on Tuesday, May the 10th. Gallicano, to make her pay the the judgment that she has to pay. That took 3 hours on Tuesday. On Friday was the time that we had, the terrible time we had with the sheriff, waking up the sheriff to do his job, which was to, we paid him $10 to go to Lydia Gallicano's bank. And this was the bank where she deposited something like 23 of my rent checks, $1,050. And, or was it 10? Well, I don't know, something like that. Is it 1,000 or 10? I think it was $10.50 a month. And, but when the sheriff went over there, and I had to pay $11 to the sheriff to go over there, these bank accounts were closed. And the sheriff doesn't come back and tell you where her bank was forwarded, or when they were closed, or anything like that. So you paid $11 to really find out nothing. So then I had to pay another $11 or $12, whatever it is, to tell the sheriff to go to her home at 42 Longview Avenue and collect this money. So we had a big fight with the sheriff. That's when I complained to the supervisor, Ryan, and to the actual commissioner of public safety, the real sheriff. On Sunday at 12:30 p.m. after church, Franklin and Glendora put together a motion to the appellate term for an order to compel Lydia to pay the restitution pursuant to CPLR 5523. There is a law that the appellate term or the appellate division can compel a judgment debtor to pay. And then we worked on getting out an information subpoena. And Monday, the Lincoln went to the body shop. And Tuesdays, when I told you we worked so hard on all those things. And Tuesdays, when I told you we worked so hard on all those things to get Lydia to pay. This is the motion to the appellate term to compel landlord respondent Lydia Gallicano to pay Glendora, tenant appellant, $1,250 plus 9% interest, plus $300 plus 9% interest, and $30 plus 9% interest. And this is the appellate term or the appellate division. There is a law that the appellate term or the appellate division can compel a judgment debtor, as in this case Lydia Gallicano, to pay. The court can compel them to pay. And these are all of my reasons why the court should make Lydia Gallicano pay this judgment. That we went to the banks and there wasn't any bank account there, and that we sent them a demand for restitution, and then all of the evidence is included here, the restitution demand and all of the fees that had to be paid. It's almost up to $100 in fees that you have to pay the county clerks, and you have to pay the sheriff. I'm really not very impressed by the sheriff's office in Westchester. I don't know whether I should play you that telephone conversation or not, so you can see how bad they are. Examination of the judgment debtor. I don't think ever in your whole lifetime you ever want one of these sent to you. Lydia Gallicano and Lawrence Gallicano against Glendora, tenant appellant, to Lydia and Lawrence Gallicano, 42 Longview Avenue, White Plains, New York, 10605, examination of judgment debtor, State of New York, County of Westchester. Demand and all of the fees that had to be paid. It's almost up to $100 in fees that you have to pay the county clerks, and you have to pay the sheriff. I'm really not very impressed by the sheriff's office in Westchester. I don't know whether I should play you that telephone conversation or not, so you can see how bad they are. Examination of the judgment debtor. I don't think ever in your whole lifetime you ever want one of these sent to you. Lydia Gallicano and Lawrence Gallicano against Glendora, tenant appellant, To Lydia and Lawrence Gallicano, 42 Longview Avenue, White Plains, New York, 10605, examination of judgment debtor, State of New York, County of Westchester. She has to fill this in and have it notarized. What is your full name? Have you ever been known by any other name? What is your occupation or profession? Where do you live? With whom? It's 55 questions. How long have you lived there? Are you married? What is your spouse's full name? How many children do you have? What are their names and ages? Are you employed? If yes, give employer's name and address. In what capacity are you employed? How long have you worked for your present employer? What wages or salary do you receive? When is your salary payable? Are you paid by cash or check? Do you receive any bonus other than your salary? Are you engaged in any business in an individual partnership or corporate form? If yes, give name and address of business. If yes, what is your interest in the business? Do you have a drawing account? Do you have any sources of income or support other than the employment of business or business listed above? If yes, state the amount received therefrom during the year preceding entry of judgment. Are you an officer, director, or shareholder of any corporation? If yes, state the name of corporation and title, if any. That means they would go after the corporation. Do you own or have any of the following individually, otherwise: automobile, a boat, truck, registration number, plate number, jewelry, stocks, bonds, other securities, piano, radio, TV, stereo, rugs, paintings, silverware, tapestries, coins, antiques, stamps, statuary, household furnishings? Please describe. Were any of these items bought on the installment plan or covered by a security agreement? If yes, state the amount paid to date and the balance due. See, they would go after all of those things to collect. Are all of the above items presently in your possession? If not, state the location of all such items. You know, we've never heard from Lydia Gallicano. When we made the demand for restitution, we gave her a chance to pay on her own, but then she didn't. We made the demand for restitution, then she didn't. Then we went after her bank accounts, and she didn't have it there in that bank, and now we've sent the sheriff to her home. Do you have any bank accounts, checking accounts, or savings accounts? If yes, state the name and address of each bank and the account numbers. Do you have any money market funds available? State the name and address. Do you have access to any safe deposit boxes? They'd even go there. If you had a decent sheriff's department, they would. If yes, state the name and address of the bank. Do you own or have any interest in any real estate, including your home? Yes, she does. She owns 42 Longview Avenue and 40 Longview Avenue. Do you pay rent? Do you rent your residence or on any other premises? Now, the sheriff could go after the tenants in the house next door that she's renting and demand that the tenants pay the money to the sheriff, the rent to the sheriff instead of to the landlord. Name and addresses of landlord security amount, lease, yes or no? Do you share shares in a cooperative, a condominium, any chattel or real estate mortgages? Yes. Yes. 42 Longview has a mortgage, and 40 Longview Avenue, the mortgage has been paid, and it was my rent checks that paid the end of that. Are you the beneficiary of any life insurance policies? If yes, state names of companies and policy numbers. Are you the beneficiary under any trust? Have you borrowed money or pledged or deposited as collateral any property? Name and address. Have you any judgments in your favor? Details. Does anybody owe you money? Are there any judgments against you? Yes, this one, a great big one. Are you a party to or have any right or interest in any action now pending in any court? Yes, I have 2 against her in the appellate division. Are you entitled to any refund for federal or state income taxes paid? Does anyone hold any money or property in trust for you? Do you have any deposits with any utility company? Do you receive or are you entitled to receive money from trust or pension funds? Do you have an interest in insurance or other claims now pending? Do you hold the mortgage on any real estate? Yes, she does, 42 Longview Avenue. And then she has to go out, sign this, and have it notarized. And she has to return it to the appellate term. So that's what happened on, this log is getting way too long. It's 37 pages on Lydia, since the last one was sent out. So this has to go out soon. That's what happened on Glendora versus Lydia Gallicano on the week of 5/2/94, and also half of the week on 5/9/94. This is what happened on Glendora versus Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin. This is the letter from Wilson Bobby. They're still lying that I never answered their bill of particulars or their demand to produce or their examination or their combined demand. And I guess I told you that they called up and postponed the date and of May the 9th. They didn't make that. And now they want to have the oral examination June the 22nd, 1994 at 10 a.m. I look forward to that. I am very interested in doing the discovery. It's my chance to tell the story as it really happened. So I look forward to that. And then they say the depositions were adjourned due to your failure to respond to our demand for verified bill of particulars. And that is a lie, and I wrote them that. And you keep telling the same lie over and over, but then you are lawyers, and that is what you earn your living. That is how you earn your living, lying. Glendora answered all discovery and served it on you and has an affidavit of same by the process server. And you take the trophy for the mixed-up law firms. That's Wilson, Bobby, Comboy, Causa, and Cousins. They're at 2 William Street in White Plains. 1994 Thursday, the number of tortious acts committed by the Walsh, mostly the Walsh family, Larkin and Alpucci have ceased, is 638. Cesar was working for 5 hours on the cellar door that was vandalized by hoodlums who live here. Now that's terrible. He had to go all the way down the door casement to the concrete, the very foundation, and put in all new wood and put the door in there with the automatic door closer. And then wouldn't you know, some hoodlum who lives here has to prop the door open all night and all day with a chair. Roberto was working with Cesar, and Glendora met the new people in 4D, Raphael and Elizabeth, and she gave them a loaf of bread that she made yesterday, especially for them, when she could not find them around. This was to welcome them to 21 Greenridge Avenue, actually 2125 Greenridge Avenue, and wish them happiness in their new home. It is too cold here. John Porzio turned off the heat too early. We should not have to pay for his furnace every month. You know, we have to pay for his furnace every month. In addition to paying the rent, we have to pay a major capital improvement fee of about $22 a month. So here we are paying for this furnace every month, and the place is too cold. Cesar worked 7 hours on the door. Glendora brought him a piece of bread and spread. At 3:30 p.m. he finished, and he did a beautiful job. His work is so good. Everything he does beautifully. He had to, as I say, replace the wood across the top and down the right side and down the hinge side. Now it closes easily and quietly. Glendora took a Scott file down to the cellar archives. Saturday, the showers were still there. Friday, there was a lot of litter. There was a stack of grocery store flyers in the front hall and another stack in the front. So I took those to take them to recycle, which is in Building C, and found another stack of newspaper flyers. You imagine that? Who would do that? And I picked up some litter, and Franklin saw the beautiful job that Cesar did on the door. 8:18 a.m. Friday, a taxi driver blasted his horn twice. Glendora told him it was against the law. His license is TM 8892 U.S. Taxi. Tenants who call a taxi should be out there when the cab comes and not disturb their neighbors. 8:30 a.m. Glendora started wall and made up for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. May 13th is the return date of Judge Wood's order to show cause against Daniel, Roberta, and James Walsh, annoying, disturbing, harassing. Yet Roberta continues it. There was litter outside Glendora's door. That's the old Walsh mental disaster. Glendora saw it at 5:28 a.m. It will stay there. Glendora will not pick it up. Roberta still leaves cigarette butts on the laundry area floor and outside the front door of the on the ground. Wilson Baba called and said that they're canceling the May the 9th date for a deposition for me, which I look forward to giving. And then she wanted to set a new date, and I told them that they were the worst run law firm that I had ever encountered. And she says, all I want is a new date. And I said, put it in writing. 9:09 a.m. I went through the wall files, and I'm up to file 7. They're all orderly and neat. And Nella Alpucci parks her car now on the east side of building C and D. It certainly has solved a lot of problems that used to come from double parking her car under our bedroom window. The wall file of law breaking is up to 1,000 pages. File 6 is the motion to Judge Wood that defendants cease all annoying, horn-blowing, and harassing. At 9:23 a.m. here is Katie Cat. Hello, Katie Cat. Hi, pretty green eyes. October 1993 to January 1994, the White Plains Noise Ordinance, 2 copies of the lawsuit summons with notice and complaint, motion for default judgment, defendant's deficient answer, recusals, weekly logs, Etna and Walsh, denied, general accident for Larkin. At 9:30 a.m., Daniel Walsh or James Walsh just kicked the foil litter toward Glendora's door. That's Tortious Act number 639. That was on Saturday. Glendora's answer in file 4 to the inadequate answer of Bendish, Wilson, Bava, Mess for the discovery, and Glendora's answer to the same. This is what is in file 4. Glendora discovers that Bendish did a crooked thing. He did not give her a copy of what he gave Judge Donovan. That's against the law. And the logs that were returned by prejudice law clerk Santucci, who was Donovan's law clerk, and rightfully so. I got Donovan to recuse because he definitely was prejudiced. What these 2 Walsh males did at 9:30 a.m. was an intentional act of causing mental disturbance and is against the law, and they are all liable for damages. They break the law again. They have not yet learned to live a clean life. Roberta Walsh broke the law Tuesday, 8:18 p.m. with insulting and abusive language, saying quack, quack when we came home from the Gannett annual meeting. This is actionable. This is a disturbing utterance, and she intended it to be. This is a tort. Well, that's nice. You should show everybody your foot, Katie. Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah. Well, it's a lovely foot, Katie. It's just lovely. This is a disturbing utterance, and she intended it to be. This is a tort. She has a duty to refrain from inflicting of emotional distress. She, her husband, and her son, they go beyond all possible bounds of decency, and what they do is utterly intolerable in a civilized community. They do not belong here. Done the wall officer work for today, Saturday, at 1.5 hours, and tomorrow this log has to go out. I never did get a chance to put out the log. Mary Ann was here on Saturday. She does such a beautiful job on the halls and the cellar. Everything looks so nice when she finishes. And on Sunday, there were the worst puddles that I'd ever seen in the cellar from the rain. You know, they're like this thick, and there were like 4 of them. It's a big cellar, of course. And so Franklin, I got out the broom from our bin, and Franklin swept up all of those puddles and swept all of the water into the drain. Does a good job of cleaning the cellar floor. The cellar floor is all nicely painted. Out in the hall and slamming of the door in the afternoon, and at 7:30 p.m. there was a deliberate harassment of stomping up the stairs, about the worst one that they've ever done. They just never learn. You know, they act, people just don't act that way normally. They act like they're impaired, that they're under some influence of some substance. At 8:03 a.m. there was a candy wrapper on Mary Ann's clean floor. There's no need of that. At 5, that was on Monday, and at Tuesday there was the eclipse. And I was outdoors in it and sat out in the field and watched it. And it was so interesting. And it had you couldn't look at the sun, but the shadows on the ground actually showed you the sun with a crescent, because that was the moon blocking the sun. And so I made a videotape of it. I hope you saw it. It's really something to see. And the color of the everything is a gray, sort of a smoky gray. It's kind of eerie and weird. At 4:21 on Tuesday, a brat kid who was a guest of James Walsh, the two of them came down the stairs. There were no parents around. There were no adults around. And they came down the stairs, and the guest, brat boy, knocked on Glendora's door like that and then ran. And then James came down after him and said, "What did you do?" And they were walking north on Greenridge and then east on Rutherford. And I watched them, and I got a good look at that brat kid. But this is no parental responsibility. This is why this kid is like that. And remember Daniel Walsh's famous statement to Channel 7 News, Eyewitness News, about James Walsh, his son. "Oh, he's a big boy now. He can take care of himself. Oh, big boy, take care of himself." He's the one who got them into all this trouble, a lawsuit against them for $7,000. And this is Jeannie Cat for the behavior of his guest, that brat boy. And Daniel Walsh, the father, and Roberta Walsh, the mother, are responsible for James Walsh. On Wednesday, I was not here. I was at the CBS annual meeting, and I was also at Yonkers Cablevision distributing the programs, and I was also at Ossining distributing the programs, and I was also at the courthouse, the Westchester County Courthouse Tower, and I looked at all the courtrooms to see what was going on. I was also at the United States District Courthouse, and I had time. I really didn't have time, but I took time to watch what Judge Fox was doing, Magistrate Judge Fox. And he was really upset, and I don't blame him, with this lawyer who was dodging discovery, just the way Kalaji is dodging discovery for Cablevision, and just the way Modern Courts is dodging discovery, and just the way Lydia Gallicano is dodging the payment, the judgment debt. And so Judge Fox really laid the law down to him. And he says, "You have that in here by Friday." He says, "You have all of the papers in with the 2-page cover letter. 2 pages only, each side. You have that in here by Friday." And then there were a couple of other cases. A man had violated his probation, and Judge Fox was sort of kindly toward him, but he said, "If you don't show up the next time, you'll go to jail." And it was a big sentence, like 10 years, I guess, jumping bail or something, whatever it is, and a big fine, something like $100,000. Okay, that's what has happened to Glendora versus Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin on the week of May the 2nd and the week of May the 9th up through Thursday, videotaping day. Glendora versus Russell Brower, the week of May the 2nd and the week of May the 9th. Russell Brower has not complied with Glendora's demand for a legible copy of the minutes. That's an outrageous thing to do that he did. Maureen, the clerk down in the city court of the city of Yonkers, told Glendora that she had to send in a letter to settle the minutes. So Glendora, being duly sworn, deposes and says that she accepts the minutes as they are. She makes no corrections, additions, or comments. Vincent Pereira, court stenographer, did a good job. The copy of the minutes served on Glendora by Russell Brower was illegible, it should be. Several pages, up to 2/3 of the page, were whited out. Glendora made a demand for legible minutes from Brower over 2 weeks ago, and Brower has not responded. Vincent Pereira kindly sent Glendora a legible copy of the minutes. Glendora read this copy and wishes to settle the minutes. It has been 3 months since Russell Brower filed his notice of appeal. He is not being diligent perfecting the appeal. He is being dilatory. Glendora moved the appellate term to dismiss the appeal and turn the undertaking over to Glendora, which is really, what the court awarded me in the first place, $255. Russell Brower did not oppose this motion of return date April 22nd, 1994. He filed no opposing papers. Glendora has not received anything from him on this matter. White Plains, New York, May the 9th, 1994. Glendora doing business as Glendora TV Ads, plaintiff respondent versus Russell Brower, defendant appellant. Go to Brooklyn today, which will be all day, up until editing time this afternoon. I will go over to the appellate term at 111 Livingston Street on the 19th floor. And they claim that there were opposing papers April 22nd. Well, I received no copy of any opposing papers. I don't think there were any. And I think the appellate term has made a mistake. I think they have called Asher Katz's letter to the appellate term that he has nothing to do. He's not the lawyer. He is not appearing for Russell Brower. He's a friend of the family. I think that that's what they're calling opposing papers, and of course that is not an opposing paper. And one of the clerks down at the appellate term said, you'd be surprised what gets entered as opposing papers around here. So I will go over there this afternoon. There should be a decision 6 to 8 weeks on my motion to dismiss this appeal by Russell Brower and to turn the undertaking over to the plaintiff, myself. Westchester County Supreme Court of the State of New York, Westchester County, Glendora Plaintiff versus Elizabeth Hubbard, Alan Beck, Michelle Mayapath, and the Fund for Modern Courts. Application for leave to make a notice of motion and motion to compel defendants to answer discovery. Honorable Nicholas Colabella, Justice of the Supreme Court, please take notice that on May 10, 1994, Glendora applies for leave to move the court for an order compelling defendants to answer discovery. On April 8, 1994, Plaintiff Glendora had served on defendants the within demands for discovery, a copy of which was received by the court. These demands were totally ignored. Glendora never heard from defendants by telephone or by mail, and defendants never appeared in person. On April 26, 1994, Tuesday at 2 p.m., Glendora had everything set up to take the oral examination. All the people were present, but no defendants came. At 1:58 p.m., Glendora called Modern Courts. Defendant Michelle Mayapath answered the phone, and Modern Courts is in Manhattan, and I'm in White. Glendora talked to defendant Alan Beck. Defendant Elizabeth Hubbard was out of the office but reported to be back soon. Glendora gave Alan Beck the chapters, dates, times, and cable TV companies where Glendora versus Modern Courts would be on the following week. Defendant Beck did not mention the oral deposition appointment where he should have been at that moment. It is hard to figure how Modern Courts and these three other defendants whose work is to reform courts, can be so defiant of the court process. The court's decision order entered March the 21st, 1994, stipulates that all discovery shall be finished by June the 16th, 1994. Plaintiff would have had her discovery ready if defendants had done their duty. Plaintiff implies that defendants answer her discovery demands in writing by May the 26th, 1994, and appear at 2 p.m. on May the 31st, 1994 for oral examination, dated White Plains, New York. May the 10th, 1994, yours in truth, Glendora, Box 416, White Plains, New York. Subscribed and sworn to before me this day by 10th day of May, Ivan Canario. And here is the affidavit of service. The service was done by Franklin Buell. This is what is happening on Glendora versus Kofalt, Dolan, Tata, Bell, Lustgarten, Randolph, Lemley, Osnara, Garger, Dolan, James Dolan, Cablevision Systems Corporation, Forma, and Polinsky. Just let me start off here by reading you the law. The cable television franchisee, that's Cablevision Systems Corporation, shall not exercise any editorial control over any public, educational, or governmental use of channel capacity designated for PEG purposes. PEG purposes, again, stands for what? Public, educational, and governmental access. That's the law. Good place to start. That's the law they broke. A lawyer who was honored by the American Bar Association. They really thought he did great work, so they named a loophole after him. Is terrible. It's the worst it's ever been. There's really no chance to get all the work done every day, not even close to it. And this is all because of the law breaking and the lying and the covering up of Cablevision, and because of bad judges. Fifth, the editing at TCI went very well. We checked 1478, 1478th public access program to see if it was done, and it was fine. And we made a VHS archive of that. And 1479, we finished Cablevision. What happened the week of April the 18th, 1994. And we have a new man taking Rob Osinoff's responsibilities. His name is Franco. He was a tape operator at TCI in Mamaroneck. So now he's coming over to White Plains to be the public access coordinator for the White Plains Public Access Studio. 1481, program 1481, Modern Courts, chapter 12. And Kalaji, No Discovery, cover-up, more cover-up, a VHS archive of this. 1482, the cross motion. To deny Cablevision's motion, to the Dolan defendant's motion to dismiss my complaint. How can you dismiss a complaint when the Dolan defendants broke the law? Well, you're just going to find out how. By a big business judge, Judge Broderick. 1432, we made a VHS archive of that. And we started editing at 4:15, or I started editing at 4:15 and finished at 7:15. It's an amazing accomplishment to do 4 3/4-inch programs, if not 5. And 4 3/4-inch programs and 5 half-hour archives. It's impossible. She's lying here on her side, looking up with her head, meaning she wants her chin scratched. And she's lying on the papers. 20 pounds. 20 pounds this cat weight. No, that couldn't be. You don't weigh 20 pounds, do you, Katie? What, 16 maybe? Little Ginny only weighs 8 pounds. Little Ginny sits on the bathroom scale. Now, the head of CBS News, I'm reading the annual report, or proxy, or whatever it is. He makes about $7 or $8 million a year. His base salary is $600,000 a year. Not of news, excuse me. President of the CBS television network. In posts that I bought him when we were down in Washington at the Gannett annual meeting. Ready to go through all of the Cablevision files. There's I think 13 files, all very fat files. Files, all very fat files. And Jim Cahagan called from Rockland County and told me that a chat with Glendora was on TKR there. He keeps watch for me to make sure that the cable company cable casts it. And we started the protest to Judge we started the protest to Judge Broderick's decision that Cablevision did not break, to dismiss my complaint. Can you imagine that? All of us are just stunned by that. How could a judge lay himself open for anything like that? Well, he did. And I'm going to read you his decision, and I'm going to read you my protest to it. 32 pages in longhand have been written, and they are being typed. And we're up to page 26 of the longhand. Your ears show. Just your ears show. Why don't the rest of you show? I have to pick you up, I guess. It was about 3 hours. I didn't have any time to do anything Sunday on it because I had to do the other things that Cablevision backed up. There were 3 children baptized in church this morning. The telephoning is up to date. Franklin watched a baseball game. Bill, that's about $250 a month. And then there's the MCI bill. That's about $50 a month. So on Sunday, Scott was done, Broder was done, Wall, Brower, Modern, Cablevision, the Broderick decision, the annual report, and typed the motion to compel discovery. And John says our office is always always cutting corners. Some offices have an Apple computer, but ours is a lemon. Enclosed are 2 forms for ordering a copy of A History of Gannett, 1906 to 1993 by J. Donald Brandt. I'm enclosing one for you and one for your local library. It's the order copy, not the books. We would be glad to have you and the library order it at the employee price. I'm also sending along a copy of the Ganneteer, which has a story about the book and its author on page 1. We were glad to see you and your husband at the shareholders meeting today. Thanks for coming. Signed, Sheila Gibbons, Director of Public Affairs. It was a good week, the week of May the 2nd, 1994. A whole week went by without any silly papers from Kalaji, the lawyer for Gannett. The total time that we spent on Gannett the week of May the 2nd was 9 hours. April, it was 63 hours. Supreme Court, State of New York, County of Westchester, Glendora plaintiff against James A. Kofalt, Charles F. Dolan, John Tata, William J. Bell, Mark A. Lusgarten, Francis F. Randolph Jr., Robert S. Lemley, Joseph Aznara, Thomas Garger, James L. Dolan, and Cable Systems Corporation defendants. Assigned to Justice Donald N. Silverman. Notice of motion for an order to compel defendants to answer the discovery. Please take notice that upon the affixed affidavit of Plaintiff Glendora sworn to May 10, 1994, and upon all pleadings and prior proceedings heard herein, Plaintiff Glendora will move this court at the courthouse, 101 Grove Street, 111 Grove Street, that should be, White Plains, New York, 10601, on May 18, 1994, at 9:30 a.m. or as soon thereafter as plaintiff can be heard, for an order compelling the defendants to answer the discovery. Dated White Plains, New York, May 10, 1994. Yours in truth, Glendora, Box 416, White Plains, New York. To Robert M. Kalaji, Satterley, Stevens, Burke & Burke, 230 Park Avenue, New York, New York, 10169. Glendora, being duly sworn, deposes and says her reasons for making this motion for an order to compel defendants to answer discovery follow. Kofalt defendants and lawyer Kalaji have been covering up since this matter started. A lawsuit cannot be decided until the truth is out. A lawsuit cannot be decided until the truth is out. Kofalt defendants and lawyer Kalaji have refused to answer who made this decision, when, where, and why. Plaintiff's demands for a bill of particulars to produce who the witnesses will be for an oral examination and combined demand were served on defendants April the 14th, 1994. They have had ample time to reply. They are dodging, running away, and covering up, and the court has a copy of this demand for discovery. The truth has come out, whether they like it or not. The court received on April 14, 1994, a copy of these 4 discovery demands by plaintiff on defendants dated May the 10th, 1994, White Plains, New York. Yours in truth, Glendora. Subscribed and sworn to and is signed by Ivan Pinerio and the affidavit of service is by Franklin Buell. Went into going to the district court, looking at the files, the Gattell file, Gattell 1, Gattell 2, and the Broderick Gannett antitrust file, and the Broderick Cablevision breaking a federal law file, the Dolan defendants. And let's see, that would be, as I say, about 5 hours. And you go there, and first of all, the file's a mess. I don't think how judges, can think straight when the file is a mess like that. It reflects what's going on in their minds. And so Franklin takes the file and he puts it in chronological order, and then he writes out the dates and what it is, and while that's being done, he asks for a docket to be made, to be printed. And so Franklin did that for all of those files. Approximately 20 hours pointing out the wild deficiencies in Judge Broderick's decision, and there's no point in commenting on that because it's all written out for you, and that will have to be read to you. What he said, what Judge Broderick said, and then what we say is wrong with it. Body shop for cosmetics, for plastic surgery, and we rented a car from Rent-A-Wreck, from Neil and from Roberta down there at Rent-A-Wreck, and we called John, the owner, out in Great Neck, and he set it up for us. It's a little car. It's pretty hard to get into and out of a little car, but at least it has 4 doors. And but it's a nice little car. It's a Ford Escort, and it really gets us around. Well, the big car, the big comfortable luxury car, is being fixed. May the, let's see, that would be the night of May the 9th, the morning of May the 10th. I got up at 2:18 or something like that, or 11 a.m. No, 11 p.m. I got up, and I started working on this backlog, and I started my protest to the Judge Broderick decision about Cablevision and dismissing my complaint when Cablevision broke a federal law. I started typing it, this poison decision, and this has taken many, many hours. And on Tuesday there was the eclipse of the sun, which was really something to see. And as I was videotaping the patterns on the ground, they showed the sun like this, and then a crescent of light like this, which would be the sun, and then over here it's all black, because that's the moon blocking the sun. And I was so excited about this wonderful work of God that when a White Plains police cruiser went by 21 Greenwich Avenue, I flagged him down. And I shared this with him, and he was fascinated by it too, because he didn't realize what those patterns were on the ground. When the sun is coming through the tree leaves, it's all sunny except where the tree leaves are. But then it was this crescent of the moon blocking the sun, so he could really monitor the eclipse without looking at the sun. It was really cool. He got very excited about it. He was a nice young man. I think that's on the videotape. At around 5:20 a.m. I feed the cats, and I pack a lunch for Franklin, and then I make peanut butter sandwiches for the squirrels. And I put those out, and I also give cookies to the raccoon. I was sad about the raccoons when I was coming up the Bronx River Parkway Wednesday, coming up from the CBS annual meeting. There was one poor raccoon body after another, and it's terrible. They're hungry. They're out looking for food. People don't feed them. And just in looking for food, they have to get killed. They have to give their life. It's Katie. May the 10th, 1994, to Judge Thomas Griesa. He's the Chief Judge of the United States District Courts, Southern District. Judge Vincent Broderick, Magistrate Judge Mark Fox, Judge Charles Bryant, Judge Gerard Gattell, Judge Miriam Cedarbaum, and to Glendora's TV audience, that's you, and that was Katie, who was just rubbing her whiskers up against this. Box 416, White Plains, New York, Glendora TV ads, protest of Judge Broderick's decision, Dolan defendants. It is all right for them to break a federal law. And Judge Broderick says, this case grows out of the tension between the desire of Congress to make cable television a soapbox for diverse views and the risks created by any imposition of governmental control upon private entities involved in distributing cable materials to cable service providers. You do well if you can understand that. I'm not too sure that I do. Glendora says, A, what does this mean in plain English? B, Judge Broderick shows no interest in the question. Dolan defendants violated a federal law, Title 47, United States Code, Section 531E. C, Dolan defendants exercised editorial control over a public access channel. D, private entities involved in distributing cable materials to cable service providers is gobbledygook. This judge is pro se when it comes to television. Judge Broderick, for the reasons which followed, it appears that in the context of the present case, the objectives of the First Amendment are best served by permitting the marketplace to control decision-making by intermediate cable program syndicators, such as the defendants are. Glendora, right away this judge is pro-big business and anti-public. B, Glendora is not a program cable syndicator. She is a public access producer. C, how are the defendants, quote, intermediate program syndicators? They are not intermediate, they are immediate. Involved only are Glendora and the Dolan defendants. D, court is pro se about television. Judge Broderick says, 2, Glendora, a creator of television programming, seeks relief against Cablevision Systems Corporation and several of its personnel for rejecting some of her programming. Glendora says, A, Glendora, a public access producer. B, for rejecting some of her program is correctly stated for censoring. That's the word, censoring, which is against the law. This is the United States of America. A truly un-American thing to do. Judge Broderick says, defendants moved to dismiss on various grounds, including the filing of 2 other lawsuits based on essentially the same factual contentions. 93 Civ 8344, Charles L. Bryant, Southern District of New York, dismissed on February 28, 1994, after oral argument before Honorable Charles L. Bryant of this court on February the 18th, 1994. Well, he didn't dismiss it afterwards. He dismissed it before the oral argument. In County of Westchester Index number 9403288, filed March the 7th, 1994. Glendora says, A, this is wrong. Lawsuit 1, Cablevision violated Title 42, United States Code, Section 1983. Lawsuit 2, co-fault defendants violated New York State Executive Law, Article 28, Section 929.3. Lawsuit 3, Dolan defendants violated 47 U.S. Code, Section 531E. This judge should do his own thinking and not sit on the knee of a ventriloquist and mouth exactly what lawyer Kalaji told him to say, even though Kalaji is making 3 times the money on this lawsuit that the judge is. Judge Broderick. Defendants asked that their motion be converted into one for summary judgment. Well, so did the defendant. I'm the plaintiff, rather, myself. Under federal rules of civil procedure, 12b6 and 56, if appropriate, and they seek an injunction against further lawsuits brought by the plaintiff against them. Sure. Cablevision, Dolan defendants, co-fault defendants, you go out and you break every law you can. Go ahead. And then you can't have any lawsuits brought against you. This is justice, isn't it? Glendora, A, judge leaves out what the plaintiff asked. B, $292 million for damages. C, return her program to its rightful position given her by Congress. D, make good the programs missed. Judge Broderick, while this case may properly be dismissed on procedural grounds alone because of the abuse of repetitive litigation involved, Glendora says no way. In lawsuit 1, Cablevision violated Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 1983. In lawsuit 2, co-fault defendants violated New York State Executive Law, Article 28, Section 829.3. In lawsuit 3, Dolan defendants violated Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 531E. This is 3 different laws. This is not repetitive litigation. What is repetitive is Judge Broderick's decisions in favor of big business, like Gannett and Cablevision, who make big political contributions. There is no, quote, procedural problem, unquote. Judge Broderick, It is important that issues presented by pro se litigants raising matters of public concern also be addressed on the merits where appropriate. I would think so. Yeah, I think that's what a judge is on the bench for, is to address a case on its merits. Consequently, the merits as well as the procedural problem presented here are treated below. And here it comes. Glendora says to that, A, if the case had been decided on its merits, Dolan defendants would have been swiftly dealt with for violating a federal law, Title 47, United States Code 531E. Judge Broderick says, plaintiff has filed a number of cross motions which need not be considered in light of the disposition made of defendant's application. Peachy Keen, Justice. Glendora, A, oh sure, consider big business defendants and ignore little citizen plaintiff. B, this judge has the wrong slant. C, no effort to back it up. D, plaintiff is tired of dismissals on technicalities and of judges ignoring the issues. Judges should get merit raises when they decide things on merit. E, it was Judge Bryan who kept saying go to the state court, quote unquote. F, and Judge Bryan said, sue whenever you feel you have a bona fide claim. G, this judge is worried about telling a private company what to do. Many laws tell a private company what to do. You have to. They're all greedy. They're all out to get the citizens. You have to have laws against businessmen. H, and Congress told this private company and this judge what it wanted. Done. No censorship. Judge Broderick says let the marketplace decide. Big business, just like his decision that Gannett is not a monopoly in Westchester. Public access has nothing to do with the marketplace. There is no money involved in public access. Glendora volunteered her 40 hours a week for public access, standing up for what is right, what principles this country was founded on, and what the Golden Rule is, the Beatitudes, the Ten Commandments, the Magna Carta, and the Judaic Law. Dolan defendants violated a federal law. How can Judge Broderick explain that away? What false illusions can warp a decision like this from the bench? How can a judge interpose his judgment when the law is so clear? He has no grounds whatsoever for dismissing this grievance. Dolan defendants violated a federal law, Title 47, Section 530. Shall not exercise any editorial control over any public, educational, or governmental use of channel capacity provided pursuant to this section. That's what the law says. Is Cablevision Dolan defendants co-fault defendants? Are Dolan defendants cable operators? Did they exercise editorial control over a public access program? That's Ginny. Okay, Ginny. Judge Broderick says the complaint is dismissed on the grounds that. Glendora says, how can a judge stoop this low? Judge Broderick says, duplicated litigation is impermissible. Glendora says, show the world where there was any duplication at all. Lawsuit 1 was a complaint that Cablevision violated Title 42 United States Code, Section 1983. Lawsuit 2 was a complaint that co-fault defendants violated New York State Executive Law, Article 28, Section 829.3. Lawsuit 3 was a complaint that Dolan defendants violated Title 47 United States Code 531E. 3 different laws. This is not duplicative litigation. Judge Broderick, no violation of the Constitution or any federal statute law has been set forth in plaintiff's papers. Glendora, Dolan defendants broke the law. Title 47 United States Code, Section 531E. No, a cable TV operator shall not exercise any editorial control over any public access channel. How can a judge be this blind? Judge Broderick, there is no reason to retain non-federal claims, especially where state court litigation concerning the same matters is now pending. Glendora says, cop out. In state court, they broke a different law. In state court, co-fault defendant's lawyer Kalaji argued that the state law is preempted by the federal law. 360 degrees. They are entangled in their own deception. So is Judge Broderick's argument. Judge Broderick says, injunctive relief against plaintiff, while permissible under In re Martin Trigona, should be considered only as a last resort and may be unnecessary. Glendora, why? It is certainly necessary. Dolan defendants violated the federal law. 47 U.S. Code 531E. Judge Broderick. Every confidence that plaintiff, now that her federal claims, I have every confidence that plaintiff, Judge Broderick says, now that her federal claims have been fully explored for a second time. Glendora, you call what Judge Broderick did, quote, fully explored for a second time, quote, unquote? In no way is this true, Judge Broderick. And the rule against overlapping lawsuits clearly set forth will refrain from repeating the same contentions in this court. Now comes a footnote. Why footnotes in the first place? Why can't they write coherently? Why do we have to have footnotes? Glendora says, what does this mean? Glendora needs plain English. What is the meaning here? Judge Broderick, footnote. Were plaintiff to disregard this gentle admonition, sanctions would be considered. Oh, boy. Cablevision breaks the law on me, and now I'm going to get sanctioned? That's justice, isn't it? Glendora. Now, in addition to no justice, we have a threat to Judge Griesa, who is the chief judge of the Southern District, United States District Court. Glendora objects. This Judge Broderick should be sanctioned. This is no way to act from a bench of a United States court. Glendora, why footnotes? Why can't Judge Broderick articulate with continuity? He and Judge Fox are always writing footnotes. Judge Broderick, these may include a direction, this is the sanction now, this may include a direction that any papers in connection with further suits brought in this court by plaintiff against any of the defendants must be accompanied by a copy of this memorandum order, and unless such papers set forth legally cognizable claims, as all of my papers have. Okay, Glendora says that violation of Title 47 United States Code 531E is what Glendora set forth. And you can see how much Judge Broderick paid attention to it. Judge Broderick's prejudice against Glendora, as in the Gannett antitrust case, is aflame here. Anti-female, anti-pro se, anti-little person, and anti-victim. Judge Broderick, which were not and could not have been asserted in prior suits. Glendora, and they were not asserted in prior suits. Judge Broderick is led around by the nose. He is brainwashed by defendants. His prejudice has set him up for this. The construction of this statement, whatever it is saying, is beyond reclaim. Glendora lawsuit 1 was that Cablevision violated Title 42 United States Code, Section 1983. Glendora lawsuit 2 was that Dolan was that co-fault defendants violated New York State Executive Law, Article 28, Section 829(3). Glendora lawsuit 3 was that Dolan defendants violated Title 47 United States Code, Section 531E. These are 3 different laws. I said that in my cross motion. I made it abundantly clear, and Glendora said so clearly in her cross motion to deny Dolan's defendant's motion to dismiss. If this statement is so important, why does it belong in a footnote? Judge Broderick, such materials will be filed without being docketed. Glendora, prejudice, rampant prejudice. Footnote to the above. Several things have been filed in the clerk's office and through negligence have not been docketed. In fact, they lost one of my original papers. They haven't found it yet. They always want the original. You give them the original, all the original important papers, and then they lose them. Judge Broderick, he gives some kind of a citation here, Schoolfield versus New York City. Glendora. Now let's look at this footnote again in its entirety. Okay, here's the footnote. Were plaintiff to disregard this gentle admonition, sanctions would be considered. These may include a direction that any papers in connection with further suits brought in this court by plaintiff against any of the defendants must be accompanied by a copy of this memorandum order. And unless such papers set forth legally cognizable claims, which were not and could not have been asserted in prior suits, such materials will be filed without being docketed. See Schoolfield. Now, isn't that a mouthful for a footnote? Couldn't this have been more clearly stated and better put in the body of the paper? Footnotes are for people who can't write continuity. This judge should be disciplined. Glendora still says that. In addition to the prejudice she lists on page 8, Judge Broderick lost his objectivity when Glendora noted that August 1993 to April 1994 was far too long to take to get a decision. That was in the Gannett antitrust case. When Glendora asked for a new judge, Judge Broderick should have recused himself. Here's what this says. Due process mandates an unbiased, impartial judge free from any personal interest in the verdict. Let me read that to you again. Due process mandates an unbiased, impartial judge free from any personal interest in the verdict. 10. Didn't Judge Broderick read what Glendora quoted in her cross motion that Judge Bryant said? And I'll read it to you now. And I quoted it here. Boy, that's some camera, isn't it? Okay, now, Your Honor, Glendora says to Judge Bryant, how much weight are you going to give to Mr. Kalaji's introducing all of my other fights for rights in other courts? Judge Bryant, none whatever. No weight whatever. You're entitled to sue any time you feel you have a bona fide claim. That's what Judge Bryant said. You're entitled to sue any time you feel you have a bona fide claim. And if violating Title 47 United States Code Section 531E is not a bona fide claim, what is? This is rank injustice. Glendora is going to send her protest to Mr. Meckham, the Chief of the United States Court Administration. Judge Broderick writes, the rule against duplicated litigation prohibits both relitigation of the same claims as in the case of the present suit and 93 Civil 8344. He doesn't give a hoot for justice. He doesn't give a hoot that these people broke the law. And the bringing of claim which could have been brought in a prior suit but were not. They couldn't have been brought in a prior suit. Glendora says, the prejudice rings loudly and clearly. 1, there should be a rule against duplicated litigation and relitigation should be prohibited. 2, but this is not relitigation of the same claims. There was no duplicate litigation. I say again, the first lawsuit was Cablevision violated Title 42, United States Code, Section 1983. The second lawsuit was Cablevision violated a state law, Article 28, Section 829(3). The third was a third law, Title 47, United States Code, 531E. In 93 Civ 8344, Glendora tried to get Judge Bryant to vacate his decision pursuant to Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 60. But Judge Bryant ignored the whole thing about 531E, about the censorship. He ignored the whole thing. He never even mentioned it in his decision. Glendora had a right to ask Judge Bryant to vacate and reconsider